This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I am Rabonzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals, and yours truly, all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love: make music. Thank you for joining me for another episode. In this one, I welcome back five-time guest of the podcast, Brian Wolff, who has also appeared in episodes 55, 119, 192, and 197. I'll, of course, have links to all of those in the show notes. You should check them out. I'm recording from the road. I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, traveling for family stuff. One reason is that my beloved sister-in-law, Mary, passed away last week, and so I'm seeing my family. And that's great to be able to spend time with them. I did leave beautiful weather and beautiful temperatures in Querétaro to enter what is basically hell. It's hot here in Texas. Very hot. I know a lot of the country's experiencing that, so stay cool out there. Drink a lot of water, or whatever you like to drink. Just be cool. Be careful. I flew here in business class, which I seldom do. It's been a long time since I've flown in what was formerly first class, business class. I told Sammy, my wife, that the people are so happy and laughing in business class. I was even happier. It was nice. I think the whole plane should be that way, spacious. And lucky for me, on my flight here yesterday, with no screaming children. I saw a doctor this week. Who cares though, right? Well, I'm telling you to say, take care of yourself. Stop procrastinating on the thing you know you should see the doctor about. So, yeah. Do that. My next videos, if you have been listening lately, I was going to make some new performance videos, and they're a little delayed. I don't really have a good excuse, but just timing with my counterpart who is going to work with me on them. So, yeah, hopefully by the next time you hear from me, they will literally be in the works. So Brian Wolff, my guest, yes, five-time Brian Wolff. He has a new EP out with his band, the Howlers. The EP is called The Golden Age. It dropped on the 15th of June, which just happened this year of 2023. I'm recording this for you on the 19th. You should check it out at brianwolffmusic.com. Brian is always so much fun to talk to. He is a super nice guy. He's one of a handful of people who I've spoken with for the podcast that I've actually met in person. We think that was in 2019. I was in Austin pre-pandemic, and I got to meet him. Yeah, super nice guy. If you ever make your way to Austin and can check him out live, I've not seen his band play live. I've seen videos. They look like they're great. Hopefully I'll get to see him sometime soon. So in this conversation, we talk about his new EP with the Howlers. The EP is called The Golden Age again. And we also chat about the value of open mics, something he's pretty good at, social marketing, mental health awareness, the economics of music tours, songwriter rounds, EPs versus albums, and more. You knew there was going to be more, didn't you? All right, please enjoy this conversation with me and Brian Wolff. Are you in Austin today?
Yes, I am.
Nice. You been traveling at all?
Not really. Definitely hoping to do that in the future, but haven't kind of held off on that. Since probably 2019 was the last time I toured, really.
You know what's so funny? I was I searched my email to get like kind of one of the first things I do to get ready for these, to make sure I remember or to remind myself some of the things that we're going to talk about. And I start looking at an email for the Punch EP release, and I'm like, June 3rd, that's kind of weird. And then I was like, wow, that's been a year. And I saw at the same time, I saw the Golden Age, the one you're about to release as we speak. And I listened to, I guess, the first track, not track one, I don't think. And I was listening to your wave samples that you sent me. And I think they're out of order, but they have the numbers there. So I listened to a song off the Punch, which was, it was I Love You Goodnight. Great song, by the way. I was listening to it thinking to myself, wow, this is one of your best songs I've ever heard. Not having listened
thanks,
to,
man.
Yeah, not having listened to the Golden Age yet. I probably listened to a little, in fact, I did listen to, I'm pretty sure Never Enough when you sent me the email that had the Golden Age attached. So needless to say, I was all confused about where you are with things, and I couldn't believe that it's been a year since the Punch. So, okay, but the Golden Age is the one that's coming out, and you have a release show July 15, 2023, which is around the corner. We're about 10 days away. How's everything going for that?
Oh, it's been great, man. Just kind of ramping up for that and just really honing in on rehearsals, kind of not playing as much live as I usually would, which it's not the worst thing in the summertime. Things kind of slow down anyways, for like kind of the just acoustic gigs around town sort of deal. Like not as many people are doing that, so it's kind of a perfect time to be ramping up to do like a big show.
Nice. Is the acoustic slowdown because of weather, or are they outdoors, or what?
I think that's most of it, because a lot of these places, they love to have an acoustic musician sort of out on the patio, or it's like the hotels aren't booking as many rooms because it's just like, who wants to come to Texas in the summertime? So it's like kind of it's a little bit slower, and a lot of times the music stuff is the first thing to get cut if they're cutting budget on anything. So it's but it's not the worst, because I've been someone who really like gets after it when things are busy and good, and I'm okay with the slowdown just because the year has been nuts until now. So I'm fine with having a few days off here and there now.
How long did you and the band work on the Golden Age, like writing the songs and recording and everything?
Well, I'd say we'd been playing the songs live for about a year, and then we kind of we really honed in on the songs for about a month leading up to recording in late January, and then we had basically 4 full day sessions and knocked the whole thing out, which was awesome. And we got to record with Frenchie Smith again. He's just an awesome producer here in Austin. He's like the rock guy. If you want to do rock and roll music, he's the dude.
Nice. So he did the Punch also.
Yeah, it was a quick process for sure, but I mean, something we did different this time, which I thought was really cool, was like the first night we basically did like a really baby session on the first night. So before we got into the 4 full days, we were able to come into the Bubble Studios with Frenchie, and basically we recorded, I think, 8 songs, sort of demo versions, but in his studio, so it sounded a little bit like it would sound on a record. Part of the point of that was to get solid demos and have some ideas on what to add, what to take out, sort of thing based on that. But also, we had 8 songs. We were trying to whittle it down to 5. So it was like a really great way to kind of evaluate all these songs based on, on a better way than just like when we're playing them, what feels the best, or like what gets the best crowd reaction. Cause that's just so, that can change every night, what song gets the best reaction. So like to have it recorded and kind of give all these 8 songs a fair shake on where they were at right then was great. And that was a really new kind of process for us. And I think it really let us pick the 5 that were best for this EP.
What was, in terms of it being a new process, what was different, like say from the last one that you did?
I think just getting to do that and really hearing high quality demos back.
Okay.
And we really prepared all 8 of those songs like we were about to record them, which that's it's kind of a different process than recording or than getting ready for a show. For us, it's like the shows can be a little bit looser, I think, and there's something about that. But when that metronome's on in the studio, things just change. It's just you really got to know your stuff, man.
Did you guys rehearse for that specifically? And I'm referring to like when the metronome's on in the studio, or were you just rehearsing kind of sort of like you were somewhere between the live show and what you ended up doing for the demos?
Well, I think we did have a click track on for one or two of the rehearsals, but now it'd be a lot easier to do that. We just kind of got like a headphone system set up for rehearsals, which is just so nice. Like, so we can have individual mixes and stuff, and I think it'd be pretty easy to imagine sending a metronome to everybody. So I'm looking forward to doing that when we get close to recording again, which I'm not sure when we'll do that, but we mostly just like, I did a lot of that individually, just went home and kind of played my parts to a metronome because from the first time recording, I kind of realized what sort of parts usually trip me up, and it's like kind of picking parts when there's like less chords and more individual notes, and that's when it's kind of easy for me to veer off the metronome when I'm doing that. So it was like kind of important for me to go home and just, really put in the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is this the second EP you've done with the Howlers, as Brian Wolff and the Howlers?
Yeah.
How many had you done before?
Well, let's see. We did 2 full-length albums with Fair City Fire.
Okay.
And we had an EP before that, and a few singles here and there. So that was kind of with different producers. We used Ben Levy for the couple albums, and he did a great job. But definitely wanted to just try something different for the new stuff and kind of reinvent the sound in a way for my new project, so it didn't just sound like Fair City Fire Part 2.
Yeah. How do you feel about EPs versus albums, doing your second one in a row and, about to release this one?
It's interesting. I love albums. As a fan, I just love getting a full album, but as a practical person trying to get my music out there, it's for me, like with the kind of budget limitations, it becomes more important for me to do like less songs and really try to make those like great, as opposed to like recording all the songs that I have and doing the best we can within the time constraints that we have, which would be limited based on, money.
Yeah. And I worry, maybe you do as well, about the forces of the attention economy, like, wow, is anybody gonna take in a full album, but will they take in an EP? And an EP, in a way, to me anyway, like, I suppose because it's a smaller handful of songs, you can play around with dripping things into certain markets and platforms as singles if you want, and then consolidating, which you could do with an album too. But did you think much about that as you were doing them, or was it really just about, as you just said, maybe I need to focus more on making 5 songs as great as I can versus being preoccupied with the full-length album?
I think another factor that I like about it is, what you mentioned is important too, but definitely not something that I thought about very much. But I think the big thing that I have thought about is the fact that while we're doing 5 songs, it's a little bit easier to release something within a year or so again, as opposed to like an album. It would take me some time to write another album, and then maybe there'd be more space between releases, which isn't always the best thing because, like you said, people have a pretty short attention span, so it's kind of like, well, here we are a year later, and I've got another release for you. And I think that hopefully keeps me kind of in people's minds and wanting to come out to shows and wanting to check out the new stuff. And they haven't forgotten about me in the last year, but who knows? We'll see.
No, I think it's a good way to think about it. I hear every once in a while that such and such celebrity who's so well known can take 5 years off and just come back and everyone's like, oh, cool. But like most people can't do that.
No, yeah. And I wouldn't want to. I mean, I really like, I love playing live, and I love like the energy of playing live when there's like something additional to it, like a release. I mean, it just to kind of have that extra, like, just celebration, to have something to put out there. And just, we definitely are really proud of this and like the work that we put in, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, most of the work was really like the preparation beforehand. Being in the studio was pretty fun. I think it doesn't feel the same that it used to. Like, I feel like the studio used to be a little scarier for me, but now it feels like kind of just, oh, this is great. This is feeding like my creativity in a different way than, and I really love working with Frenchie. Collaborating with him is just, it's fun. It's a good time.
Nice. That makes a difference, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
makes it more relaxed. Well, it's a great album. I mean, you guys, all of you, Frenchie included, did a great job. I was listening to it in the hour leading up to our conversation today. It seems like you're exploring a new sound from a production perspective, and like Lean In has a nice pop sensibility. And I was thinking, just when I listened to Golden Age and really everything, your singing's gotten really good.
Oh, dude, thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you've been going at it hard for a while, so I imagine it's helped. It's paid off.
It has, and I think I've gotten some good advice too. I think a big thing that I've learned more so with studio stuff, and I mean, I guess it spilled into my live show too, is like being a little bit more able to use a microphone in the full capacity of it, like knowing that you can sing almost at like a just above a whisper and it'll still project, and like there's something really cool about that tone, and that's not something to avoid. That's not weaker. That's just kind of if you can do it, it's like a whole different tone in your voice you can throw in. And we did a lot of that with this recording, and I'm doing a lot more of that live. Sometimes like singing harder isn't necessarily like the bigger thing to do. Like sometimes singing a little bit more, like, I don't know, just not pushing so hard, sometimes actually creates more power and leaves more space for the lyrics to shine through, or a little bit more ways to accentuate certain notes.
Is there a person or a resource or a moment that made you kind of hone in on that newish skill with your vocals?
I mean, I think Frenchie was the big thing for me. Just working with him, I think especially on the song "The Punch" is the first time I really remember honing in on that, because it's just such an emotional song, and it's really important too that there's a big contrast between the beginning of the song and the end. So I think that was like a big part for him, was really taking away from the beginning part and making that quieter. But what Frenchie told me, I think, which was really profound for me, is like there's a lot of power in singing softly. Like there's a lot, and it's just a weird. Logically, it doesn't make sense.
Well, if I think about where I feel like you came from, for me anyway, Fair City Fire, that was all just sort of balls to the wall.
Yes.
High energy and vocals,
Yeah.
guitars, drums, everything. So maybe, Frenchie's part of the new world, but it's sort of a new world. And you still carry a lot of that tradition. I mean, you still have this almost like somewhere between a garage rock, and I mean that in a good way, and I don't know, maybe like an alternative thing or something. And like I'd said earlier, like this pop sensibility. So I could see where now that you're telling me all this, where it would feel like, oh wow, I never thought about that.
No, yeah, Fair City Fire was definitely not. We weren't really about that. Which is I kind of reflect on that, and I think it was great. I mean, that's the energy that I had at that time. That's the energy the four of us had at that time. So it was like, let's do that. And we really weren't interested in shows that asked us to like be quieter or anything like that. We were going to be the loud raucous band, no matter what situation we were in. But I'm really, happy to have had that time, and I'm also happy that I've moved on from that too, as a performer, like just not needing to be so aggressive live all the time.
Yeah, you're exploring new ground, so that's always fun, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Even though
it
some
is.
people don't seem to ever do it.
Yeah, and you know what I like about it too is I think it's become a lot more about the songs themselves than necessarily anything else. And I think I heard like Springsteen talk about this. Like he had an interview on Howard Stern. I don't know if you checked that out at all, but it was on HBO for a bit. I listened to the whole thing, and I remember something profound. He was talking about playing one of his songs acoustic, and he didn't have his band with him. It was just him and a guitar singing in Howard Stern's studio. And, he was just like, did you miss having the band? Did you miss having Patty singing with you? And, he's like, I mean, of course, like, but he's like, in my opinion, like, a good song is a good song is a good song. It should be a good song whether I'm playing it in an arena with my band or playing it here with you solo. And if it's, if it's a good song, it's good either way. And I think that's like something I really thought about and try to strive for, and just try to understand that like it's playing live and performing and being in the studio, whatever it is, like it's not necessarily about, oh, it's got to be a certain way, it's got to be a certain specific sound. It's got to I think it's just got to honor the song, whatever it is.
Sure. And I think in today's climate, the music business, I'm really happy to hear you say that, because you have a great talent for playing acoustically, and I think that thinking that way, if you feel that way about your latest EP and maybe even the one before, it lends itself to a lot more opportunity for you, and maybe in the form of smaller ensembles where you cannot have the whole band. Maybe it's on Howard Stern, or maybe it's a house concert or just a solo gig that you want to do, and I just love that you have the flexibility to do that, just in terms of your ability to perform your stuff and get paid something to do it.
Oh, totally, yeah. And I mean, I've done a few of these like songwriter rounds too. I don't know if you ever really went to one of those, but I really enjoy that thing too. And you can't do that with other performers. Usually it's just solo, and it's you and an acoustic guitar. There's no like, you can't use a pedal or anything like that. So it's really just about you and the song. So even beyond like radio appearances or anything like that, like being able to do that has really got me into some cool situations, and gotten me on stage with some songwriters I really learned a lot from just by sitting next to them on a stage.
I've never attended one. Are they always a live event too, or I mean, I guess that's what makes it what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part they're live events. I don't know if I've ever really watched one after the fact. But it's fun. I don't, for listeners that might not know what they are, it's kind of, basically 3 or 4 singer-songwriters will be on a stage next to each other, and each performer will take a turn playing their song. And then there's usually a little bit of banter between the songs, and then the next performer plays their song. And, you get to talk about what your songs are about. Usually I like to take that time to joke around with the audience and stuff, and that kind of makes it pretty fun, and I think the banter with the other songwriters can make it like a super fun show if it's the right people and everybody's got the right spirit about it.
Do they sometimes, the performers, the songwriters, sometimes accompany one another? I know that may not necessarily be an easy thing to do, depending on the nature of the songs and everything, and lack of any kind of rehearsal. But do you sometimes accompany each other a little bit, or do they just sit and listen? Oh, cool.
Yeah, that kind of happens organically a lot of times. Sometimes, I've seen this happen where somebody will have a guitar solo in their song and just be like, "Hey, this song's in C." Like they'll just know the other guy can play lead stuff, and
Nice.
It's like, I'll give you a cue, and then you play a solo, and it's pretty it's pretty cool and organic when that happens, because then you're hearing a totally different kind of solo than you probably would on their record.
And do you guys share ideas about each other's songs when, like, like maybe after talk about some part and how cool it was, and what I think would be awesome, lend itself to your voicing and everything if you did this? Do you guys ever do that at the?
I wouldn't say there's like live like feedback necessarily. I mean, there is like very complimentary stuff, but I think it's all it's not like there's no like nitty gritty like critique or anything like that. But I think at those live shows, it's a lot of kind of, this is what I liked about that song, like you mentioned, or this is how I connected with that song, and I think that's it's pretty cool that happens.
We were talking a moment ago a little bit about playing out live, and before we were officially, or at least before I think I'll officially have the recording going from, we were talking about touring and some opportunities. But I want to read you a quote from an artist who, I guess it's a band based out of LA, but it's the lead singer in a completely different genre. Maybe you've heard of them. But I'm going to read you this quote and just tell me what you think. She says, I'm 33 and I've been gambling my whole life in hopes that this pays off. If people knew how non-lucrative this world is and how little money most bands make, they'd probably be more likely to buy an extra shirt. And that's a quote by Courtney LaPlante of Spirit Box.
Cool.
Yeah. What do you think about that? And the context is very shortened by the quote. That was a tweet I did, by the way, on her quote. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. But I mean, it's kind of, I try to avoid that type of thinking in some ways, even though I do think it would be good for more people to be educated about how like important like merch sales are to bands. But I think there's something about being a performer that, like, I think when you start talking about that stuff and like talking about how hard it is, which it is hard. It's very hard to do this, to be in this business. But I think in a way it's sort of like, well, we all kind of made a choice to be in this business. We knew it was going to be hard. So like constantly talking about it sometimes only serves to kind of create a divide between you and the fan in a way, because it makes it about something that isn't about them just connecting with your music and wanting to buy a thing. Like suddenly there's another factor. It's like almost like, oh, you should feel bad about like, there is like a fake it till you make it sort of thing, right? And I don't know how like important that still is, but I think there's just something about like just that beautiful connection of like, this person is buying a shirt or a CD or something solely because they had a great experience and they loved it and they want to connect with you more. And I think that's like the real thing. And I think like, guys, my life is so hard, please buy a shirt thing can turn into something else.
Yeah, and I think she made that statement cautiously. I'm not even sure I don't know her, and a lot of times you hear like, man, I didn't want them to print that. But I think she made it cautiously, or at least that's the way it was written, and it was really a sub-theme of a much, not much larger, but a larger article, and to her kind of emphasize her point. Her band's doing some great shows. They're about to start headlining their own shows, big venues, and I think she heard a comment from someone that, or saw it online, saying something like, wow, these guys have day jobs. They have like 70,000 monthly streams on Spotify. And I don't know if that's the exact number she gave, and she goes, people don't realize that's not paying anyone's bills. And she was just she was really speaking about also, I think, she mentioned like the cost of touring. And the reason I was so kind of drawn to the quote was because I have read a lot of things about, and it may be artists in her particular position, at the juncture in her career where they're out doing these big shows, these big tours, or throwing everything they have into it. But I've heard that the economics of touring has gotten very difficult, and I just wonder. I've talked to a couple of indies about it, and I guess her band's arguably indie, but or maybe they're on a label, I don't know, but and you know, I have had someone say, well, yeah, you know, we obviously have to think about the economics of it, and certainly it's gotten a little more expensive.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely I haven't really looked too much into like touring myself, but that's definitely something that I hear a lot from yeah, even like big bands is just like how it's harder to do now. Um
Yeah,
and I mean something I noticed too is like pretty much everything's more expensive now, like
oh
getting
my God.
shirts made on our end. So like that's another factor is like you're seeing like us have to like charge more for shirts at the merch table, um and maybe people being used to like buying a shirt for like $15, are now seeing the $25 price and thinking like, oh, that's so expensive. It's like they don't necessarily know that like the cost of that stuff is just going up on our end too, so we have to do something about that.
I was noting how many you've been on the show several times. You may be on the leaderboard. Well,
Yes.
you're definitely on the leaderboard. I guess I want to say you may be tied with or at the number one spot. I'm not sure, but I didn't tally that up today. But I wanted to ask you a question based on one of our past conversations. I thought, well, it was something that I noted we talked about. So the question is, do you still feel that old school marketing delivers a big impact for musicians?
I guess in what way? Like,
Great question back to me. So I think probably we were I didn't, make time or have time to listen to our conversation, but I think that I had gathered that you were doing some very classic, not, super, high tech's probably the wrong word, but the marketing you were doing wasn't terribly sophisticated. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was just like, it's kind of maybe it's low hanging fruit, or maybe it's stuff that, um, people in your demographic have been doing for a long time and that it still works. So I guess just in a very broad context, do you feel that there are some things that you have been doing or will be doing in the near future that are just things you've been doing for a really long time and they still work? Or are you diving into a lot of new ideas for marketing?
I think I'm always trying to adjust the game plan now. I think, I don't really find like printing out posters and hanging them in like coffee shops to be that valuable anymore. I think that used to be the whole thing for a long time. Was like
Yeah,
everybody would do that.
right.
And I think now what I think about, and this is just uh, maybe a modern thought. I'm not sure, but just like with like social media, like Facebook and Instagram specifically, which is probably where I do most of my advertising and letting people know when the shows are and trying to hype them about new music and stuff. I think like a really big thing I've been trying to focus on is just like really just being myself on those things. Like trying not to like make that some different version that seems cool on, on those platforms. Like what I've found to be something I think people are longing for is real things to connect with. And I think some way you can provide that is in your songwriting being genuine, but also in your posts online. Like just kind of when I read them over before I post them, I'm like, would I actually say these things to someone?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or is this just like the right music jargon to use for and it's like I think that usually the right play is just like, how would you talk about this thing if you were talking to a buddy at a bar, like, and I think that's become more important for me, and I think that maybe is a little bit new school because I think just connecting with people that intimately on the internet is just like kind of a new thing because I guess growing up, everybody only really knew about bands from like the sleeves inside of the CD, they'd read the name and read a little info or maybe see like an interview on MTV or something, but now it's like everybody's just constantly on all the time. So I think we have an opportunity to be ourselves and connect in a real way.
Yeah, in a way, it seems like people have been talking about this for quite a while. However, in the grand scheme, it's pretty new. And I was thinking before we got on our call today that I have enjoyed that about you, but I'm connected to you, like your either like followers or friends. I think we're friends on Facebook, so I've seen a lot of stuff that isn't quite as easy to see on like the Brian Wolff music accounts, although I know that some of that is there. But I was thinking to myself, that's one thing I really enjoy about being connected with you as a musician and someone who's been on the podcast, that you seem like very much yourself. And I've met you in person.
Yeah,
And we hung out a tiny bit, and so it seemed like, yep, that's the guy. This is the guy that that I know from Facebook, and that's cool. And I don't see that with a lot of artists. And I mean, it sort of comes across as they're trying to be something else, but I think deeper down, it's really just, they're not too comfortable expressing some part of their genuine self. And I totally get that, people don't want to overshare. Totally get that. But I think that there are certain things, if we just take a step back and think about what are some things that I'm willing to share here that will let people know who I am and sort of let people gravitate toward me who would like me anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if it comes off like oversharing or some sort of it turns some people off, like maybe it's just they weren't meant to be in your corner anyways,
Mm-hmm.
in a real way. So it's like fine, if being real with people sometimes turns people off or something, it's okay. I think the connection you'll have with people, if you do that in a real way, is more valuable than the loss of like losing a few people that aren't that into it anyways.
100%. No, I agree with that. I think where I worry for some people, who are online, and is just for privacy. Um, from a
Oh
privacy
yeah.
perspective, sometimes people share things. I'm like, wow. But I think, even though a lot of people say they care about privacy, my impression is like, well, do you really?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff you gotta, I mean, really, if you're being smart about it, you have to just avoid saying certain things for sure
Yeah.
publicly.
We've also talked about in the past, and if you don't have some clear memories of the discussion, it's okay. So well, anyway, we talked about in the past mental health, and I believe the context was just really like the importance of maintaining a good state of mental health. And this may have also, I was trying to remember because I didn't get to go back and listen to the myriad of conversations we've had.
Right,
But we had, we had one about giving back to the children of Austin. So some of it may have come from there. I don't recall, but some of it may have come from personal, like firsthand experience or firsthand experience with family or friends. But do you, is this something that you think about these days?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I think I've been going to therapy for since 2018, so for quite a while now. And every other week, so nothing intense, but I get therapy through an organization in Austin called the Sims Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're great. They basically are there to serve the music community here, and
That's
help.
so great.
It's like not only I go to therapy and just have like kind of one-on-one sessions where we just talk for an hour, and then I'll go about my day. But there are also like addiction recovery services that they offer and stuff. It's a really great organization. Especially if anybody is living here in Austin and needs some help, definitely look them up. They're great.
Is it
But
SIMMS or SI?
1M, so SIMS Foundation. They're great. But yeah, I mean, they matched me up with a therapist in 2018, and we just hit it off right away. And just it's been a great little thing in my life. And something that I would say too is like I wasn't really going through a crisis. I knew there was some stuff I didn't really work out in my past. I just kind of shoved down and moved on with my life, and I felt it kind of like some old traumas and stuff kind of popping up, and in ways that I like that were surprising me, and also like in ways that just were not healthy. So I thought it would be pretty important for me to kind of get that stuff straightened out, and it's really just become a maintenance thing. And it's you don't have to be someone who's going through like the worst moments of their life to go, or like someone who's got some mental health like condition, like, because I'm very thankful that I don't have depression or anything like that. I not in a clinical way or anything, but I think that's just an important message to get out there, that like therapy is for everybody. It's not, you don't have to like be a certain kind of person or have a certain illness or anything. Just, I think anybody could get use out of it.
Well, and thanks for sharing that, yeah. And I hope it does help others just to hear that. I see that you're still talking about Fridays and asking everyone to share any good news they have.
Yeah, man.
I haven't seen it on a regular basis. I was actually trolling your accounts, before we got on the call. I'm like, oh yeah, he's still doing that. I need to look for that on Fridays. I probably just don't. I don't get on Friday mornings. And but what inspired you, and how long have you been doing that now?
I mean, I would say I've been doing it for probably 5 years at least. I I don't know. One day I remembered, I think I was just talking to someone, and I remembered in our conversation that I had a teacher that used to do that on Friday mornings. In high school, it was like he taught chemistry, and we would just come in, and he would say the same thing every Friday. Before saying hello, he would say, "Today is Friday. Friday is a good day. Does anyone have any good news to share?" And we would just talk for, he would just spend the first 5 minutes of class. People would raise their hands or not, and just talk about something good that happened. And I was like, it felt weird at that time, in a way, to, but I think I realized now, like, that was pretty valuable in a way. And I thought about it, and I was like, I think people could use that now, and and I could use it. And I think it's just something that there's a ton of space on Facebook specifically, and Instagram, but there's a ton of space on those things to talk about what's going wrong, and what you hate about the world. And I think there's not as much space to like just talk about something good that's happening. And I think there's like this, and this is kind of some afterthoughts I've had now that I've done it for a while. It's like, I think there may be a fear for some people, like, to talk about something good going on in their life, because they'll worry other people will like think they're bragging about themselves, or anything like that. And it's just like, no, it's just, this is just a place for that to feel okay, just to like say something good is going on. Sometimes it's buddies releasing a new song, or sometimes it's somebody's dog is feeling better and they were sick before, or it's just like, it can be anything. It's just and I think sometimes it's just helpful, especially with the last 3 years or so, just with everything that's happened. Like, it's just helpful sometimes to think about just one positive thing. If that's all you do throughout the day, that can help. I think, just kind of make your day a little better.
Yeah, and I think some of us, myself included, are not very good at celebrating accomplishment, and even the smallest things. I'm remembering now, maybe it's been more than a couple of years since I actually responded to one of those, but I was just thinking that even the smallest things can come across as great, and get celebrated by others, people who don't even know you sometimes. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
Oh, totally.
So
And, it's fun too. I mean, it's kind of interesting too, because some feedback I've gotten from some people are, they'll like, I'll see them out somewhere, and they'll be like, oh, like I was thinking about posting on that, but I just like haven't had anything like that monumentally good happen like on a Friday. I'm like, it doesn't have to be. It could be the smallest thing. You could have gotten out of work a little bit early or something like that, like that's, I mean, it's just there for whoever wants to use it.
Perhaps celebrating the small things is the key to recognizing the big things that you've done that are worth celebrating.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you still make time to do open mics, blues jams or open mics?
Yeah, I go to open mics sometimes. It's not as often as I was, but I've been playing at the Driscoll Hotel on Mondays. That's kind of on pause right now for the summer, but I think we're going to get back to it this fall, it seems like. But something that I'd finish the gig, and then my buddy Raul would have this open mic around the corner. And that usually started about the time my gig wrapped. So I'd like wrap up my chords and just walk the few blocks over to this place called Speakeasy, and he'd be having this open mic, and it's like interesting because sometimes I feel like playing, and sometimes I really like just sitting there and listening to other people and kind of remembering what it was like to be new in town and just like hustling to get on any stage I could, and like I think there's something really powerful for that with me, and to see that and to appreciate that and kind of see that in other people.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad to hear you're doing that. I've not really seen anywhere I'm living now, which is weird because there's so many musicians, but it's culturally a different place, so that could have something to do with it. But I keep threatening to start one myself, but I would want to do or try to start it out try to turn it into a blues jam. Some advice I got from our mutual friend Laura Price was, when you first start one, you probably need to be open to, just having it sort of a general open mic, and then over time you could hone it down to a blues thing. And she gave some other really, sound tips about doing them, but I've been here over a year and I've yet to do it. There is a place that I think maybe would be into hosting them that I'm thinking about approaching, but I love the idea, and I used to do it more in San Jose and a little bit when we were in Panama, but they weren't super frequent there. But they sure are fun. So. Oh,
they are fun. Yeah, I was hosting one for a little bit back in 2019. Yeah, and it was I think hosting it maybe isn't my favorite thing, but I think going to them is. I really like it a lot.
It's a lot less work, right?
It's a lot less work, yeah. And it's just kind of it's tough. Hosting one. I just remember some headaches with it, but it's not like it is pretty rewarding at times for sure.
I actually did play. I was performing in a performing band or a host band at one in this nearby town, at this rich guy's house who has a sound amphitheater stage and a place for a lot of people to sit and food and everything at his home. It was amazing, but the singer who was singing with us, I think it was the first gig we did with him. He was hosting it, and I know he's done it before, but I was just watching him, and he kind of, for whatever reason, he fumbled through the host duties, I think, a little bit, and it was a little wheels off. But anyway, it made me think, wow, you really, you got to be on top of this, and maybe that's where some of the headaches come.
I think that's a lot of it. Is you really have to be like on the whole time, like because in between acts, it's like especially in Austin, like there's so many people that show up for them. So, and I think mine was growing, but I don't think it ever got to a point where it was like full list every week or anything. But you limit it to like 2 songs usually. Sometimes the really, really busy ones are 1 song, and that's just quick. I mean, it's just like okay, you're up there for 5 minutes maybe, and then it's time to switch over to the next person and introduce them, maybe if you want to be an MC about it, which some people do that, some people don't, but it's just like being on that whole time, and also playing host in that you're talking to the musicians that are playing and making them feel welcome, and it's just like it's a really busy few hours for the host. Some people are really good at it, and some people like me, I think I was just okay at it.
Laura, she did it for I think a long time, but she told me also, and I know this, you're the kind of person who would figure it out really fast if you didn't already know when you going into it. But she said, it has to be entertaining for the jammers, but it has to be entertaining for the audience, some of whom are jammers.
Yeah,
that's a lot of entertainment to balance.
It is. It really is. Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad I had the experience. If not for anything else, but just to appreciate people that do it. Like
That's a good
I
point.
think it's like sometimes when you like go to a restaurant and they're like just absolutely slammed busy. It's like you kind of think back, like it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I really think everybody should have had a job like that at some point, so they can have empathy for that. Like
Yeah.
like to understand what they might be going through, and
Yeah,
how hard that is.
Yeah, being of service to others for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, good luck with the Golden Age, the release show to you and your bandmates, the Howlers. The show is coming up Saturday, July 15. By the time people hear this, it'll have passed by a week, but I'm okay with that because I'm thinking, well, hey, man, maybe I can give them some tail end juice on the release. And
Yeah, that'd be great.
Your episode will come out the following weekend, but I'll mention
Awesome.
it. I'll do my best to mention it in the upcoming episodes, and for anyone from Austin who might be listening. And yeah, man, it was really great talking to you. I love the new music.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Thanks again for listening. You can leave feedback at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. The series music you hear lately during the intro and outro of these episodes is New Gods Part 2 by yours truly. You can find links for listening to the full version that includes vocals by yours truly at robonzo.com. There will be a link in the show notes, lest you forget that. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you love this podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways of showing your love and support. And finally, find links for all the people and things talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Peace, love, and a whole lot of gratitude. If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, tickets, and more, and it provides detailed fan data. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. If you're interested in starting a podcast but have been procrastinating, stick around for a couple more minutes because I want to tell you about Podcast Startup. It's a program I started working on months ago but didn't quite finish. Well, I'm putting the finishing touches on it as I record this for you. If you feel you need a little help getting your podcast started, Podcast Startup is for you. It's affordable, info-packed, and ideal for new podcasters. With Podcast Startup, you'll get an amazing step-by-step guide for getting started, lots of practical tips, and direct access to me for the unexpected, the deep questions, the I need a little more help kind of stuff related to podcasting. Look, I've published, recorded, and worked on over 275 podcast episodes. I'm constantly studying to improve my own game, and I want to start helping others start and sustain their own podcasts. Did you know that most podcasts don't make it past their first few episodes? That's right. They start, they stall, and then they die. Sustaining a podcast ain't easy. It's commitment. Poor planning and poor expectations are a recipe for a fast burnout and fade out for podcasters. This is exactly the kind of thing Podcast Startup was designed to help with. If you're intrigued, if you want to start a podcast the right way, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to sign up for the beta launch. Wait, what? Beta launch? Yep. This is all new, and for a limited time, you can get a screaming deal on Podcast Startup. It'll always be well worth the price of admission, but the screaming deal is only available for a limited time. Go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to learn more. Start your podcast the right way with Podcast Startup by me and the Unstarving Musician. All right, one more time. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.